Okay, I think it's finally being communicated in the way the public can understand from authority. The defense secretary in the UK has told the public a number of things about what's happening with a Russian ship in um, UK waters doing some reconnaissance, gathering data. So a number of things happening. It's finally being communicated, I think, and accepted and understood so that now it's kind of layman to the general public. Because trust me, the general public are dumb. They really are. Um, so moving forward, it's finally been accepted and communicated that Mr. Trump is a threat, despite how stupid he is. But that's the problem. The key underlying problem is this idiot is a tool for corrupt means and corrupt ends. It's how he got brought along in the first place to be encouraged to be in positions of authority, right? Corruption within authority loves weapons. President Putin loves a weapon in another country to annihilate and destroy that country so that they can play psychological games to gain control of that country. His fantasy of bringing back the USSR seems to be a thing. It does seem to be evident. Um, Highly delusional and addicted to the past. People forget to address that Putin was KGB. He was a member of the KGB, which really, during the Cold War, it was a thing that really did a lot of political games to slip under the radar and use psychological games, misinformation, disinformation, and infiltrating a groups here and there. So data gathering. If anybody can look at things where the systems have been hacked, you'd be surprised a large amount of hacks come out of Russia. They have done in the past. That's not all of them, but a large amount. So whether that's just some idiot trying to do the thing or far worse, right? So here we are in about 7 days ago, or maybe more. The House Secretary, not House Secretary, sorry, the Defense Secretary of the UK has said a bunch of things that start to underline that they've always understood this. And they're communicating this to the general public. Hopefully, the general public can get an IQ above dirt collectively, because there's some smart people out there, but it's like so few and far between. When you go to a public bar in the UK, which you kind of thought was a good crowd, astute, and so on, to at least A level, and the barman blurts out, "What Trump's doing is looking after the general public, Americans." Yeah, right. Um, Mind blowing. What Trump's doing is looking after himself, his own selfish interests from day one is always what he's been doing. So how this relates to what Russia is doing, well, Trump is pro Putin because it's distracting from something called the Epstein files. And now eyes rolling, oh, here we go again. But make no mistake, you got a rapist as a president of a country that for decades always claimed it was the best country in the world, land of opportunity, and so on. Now, everything that America has ever done, good or bad, has affected and infected other countries. It's done quite a lot of bad as well. And not only that, going to war over 9/11, it was a big, big misstep. And really, among other things. And I see politicians across Europe, in the UK, trying to copy some of the that's the idiocy, really, but from their perspective, the ideologies of like MAGA cult like things. It's worrying that where people forget that those in power are human beings, and human beings are prone to malfunction. And if you give them absolute power, it corrupts absolutely. And they forget who put them there in the first place. You know, where the leader go, the leaders will follow because they will have to. Needs to be an underlying realization. A lot of power does exist with the general public, and the power to have control is in your vote. You have no right to complain of who got in if you don't vote. I don't think. You have all right to complain and say what you like and don't like if you do vote, because you're part of the results of that. If whoever got in was who you voted for, right? And even if it's not who you voted for, perhaps you didn't communicate enough as to why you was preferring a different party. Like it or not, politics is an integral part of society. And sure, there's the people's politics and there's the politician's politics sometimes, and more often than not, right? So, again, Trump was the straw that broke the camel's back. If you're sick and tired of America being slated and how idiotic it is, how broken it is, we've always said this. This is not brand new. But like I said, Trump was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's a saying. I don't know why. I would say straw that broke the horse's back. But regardless, it's a metaphor, a pressure that broke things because they were already corrupt and weak to start with. And now that that's done, I find it's a shame, and uh, it's awful that certain individuals, many Americans, not just certain, just a few or whatever, there's millions of Americans who are sick to the core of this brokenness in this country, America, being manipulated in a way that just favors this cult, MAGA, which is now attacking itself anyway. All cults end up doing that, especially when they run out of targets, or when the target ends up exposing them so much so that it becomes very evident that cult members suddenly realize, whoa, am I in a cult? Yeah. And then it ends up attacking itself. Certainly, there's a lot of that going on, and it's a final realization from authorities in the UK. Defense Secretary, very powerful message for the public, to basically say Trump is a tool for Putin for more misinformation and manipulation and so on. Why is Trump even bothering to bend to Putin? Well, because I think partially it's very distracting. And he always likes to fantasize that he's going with, it's a fantasy fictional thing. He's going with, I don't know, what he perceives to be the winner, the stronger one or whatever. But it's all within the fiction, within the bubble of fiction, and self grandiose and so on. Well, if there's anything in it for him, being cahoots with Putin, because Putin's praising him or whatever, you only got to say a few things to appeal to Trump's ego, and suddenly you got a puppet. You got an absolute puppet in control. Because he's so obsessed with self-importance, rather than realizing with power comes great responsibility. But he will not take responsibility for a damn thing. He will twist information, fantasize that it's a particular way, and so on. It really is vile and disgusting. But how bad are the people who want to enable him. They're worse than him. And that's very vomit inducing and very, I feel like my heart sinks about um, knowing that this is how broken the human species is on too much of a collective level. It's not just a few here and there. Um, and it's okay. I'm all right. Screw anyone else. Or do this or that to improve things when I retire. That kind of attitude. And it's just, I'm all right because I'm greedy and attached to bringing in more and more to protect me. Caroline Levitt is just another fool who's riding that train of brokenness because it protects her. You look at her body language, I've talked about body language before, her brow barely moves and she has this direct stare when she's kind of blurting out this rhetoric that is utterly absurd, but it's all like the script of Trump's idiocy, right? That is a sociopath right there. And sure, some forms of sociopathy can be applied in actually positive ways. And that seems contradictory to some people. However, Caroline Levitt, yeah, is a selfish, corrupt um, sociopath on the bandwagon, on the train, going nowhere because it's convenient at the moment for her. Don't matter, never mind people really, really suffering because the errors of the ways, she'll just blurt out any accusations. She'll blurt out, like, this is not true, that's not true, and run the script and just do whatever it takes to stay on that train that is crashing anyway while it's convenient for her. When it all crashes, of course, it is crashing, but it's going to get worse when it's no longer safe to be on that train. She'll just go and use some other, just latch onto something else. This is what Trump does. This is what they all do. They are sociopathic, megalomaniacs, excessively um, narcissistic. And of course, yeah, that the word narcissism does get bandied around a lot, but fair play. There's a lot of it about, and there's a lot of it about within authority because narcissists, of course, want to be worshipped, and what better way to infiltrate their corruption into authority to promise the earth, say, "Oh, we're the best. Yes, we can do this, we can do that, whatever it might be," and they never tell you in great details of what is being communicated, other than tell you, "Oh, this is going to be great for America. This is going to be great for this or that." But there's never a description, a layering of detail to prove what they're saying. And the world, again, everything America does affects the whole world, right? So we get into what the Defense Secretary John Healy has said. John Healy said in the UK recently, in a bit, that the world is sick to the core of the damage that America has done, because it's not how it's damaging itself. Everything America has done and does affect every other country. Please understand that. No matter how upset you are of, you keep hearing other people in other countries how bad America, you hear them saying how bad America is. Sure, there's problems in my country. Definitely left, right, and center. There's not enough drainage in some areas for flooding. Area where I would get to work has been severely flooded, and among other nearby locations recently because of bad weather. And there's never enough warning. It should have been a red alert warning, but we was in amber alert warning, and all these different things. Enough money isn't going to the right places to mitigate many problems in the UK. there's too much trying to copy cultism, American style, within our politics in the UK. I'm sick of it. I'm sick to the core of it, and it's inspired by American idiocy. You can see the way it's gone. It's definitely inspired by that. Just like the Reform Party, UK Reform, really, it's just another copy of many things that was, oh, we'll make America great again. How great is it going for you? It's not. It's rotting, festering, and putrid from the inside out. Um, and certainly, if you are in America and I find it unfortunate and saddening for you that you've got to put up with this because make no mistake, famine will be a thing in maybe a few more years in America, if not happening already for some states. Among other very serious health issues, you got health secretary that bathed in sewage. That's not very health conscious. Doesn't sound healthy at all. Blurts out very anti-health rhetoric and sounds very unhealthy. Had a brain worm, but I don't think that worm really left. Whatever it's doing, eating parts of the brain, maybe. I don't know. But you don't want a worm in your brain. That's not natural. Anyway, you see where this is going. Was talk about the defense secretary in the UK talking about what Russia is doing. And because, Russia, Putin knows that Trump is a puppet. And if he can appeal to Trump's ego, Trump will support him. So let's get into that. What it was said by the Defense Secretary John Healey recently. John said, as he speaks, a Russian spy ship, the Yantar, is on the edge of waters north of Scotland, having entered the UK's wider waters over the last few weeks. This vessel for is designed for gathering intelligence and mapping for undersea cables, the undersea UK cables. It was UK deployed a Royal Navy frigate and RAF P-8 planes to monitor and track the vessel's every move, during which the Yantar directed lasers at the pilots. That Russian action is deeply dangerous, and this is the second time this year that ship, the Yantar, has been deployed to UK waters. So his message was to Russia and Putin is, we see you, we know what you're doing, and if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready. And he wants to praise the dedication and professionalism of armed forces. They work 24/7 every day of every year to keep the nation safe. But this is also a stark reminder that we are in a new era of threat. Our world is changing. It is less predictable. It is more dangerous. And in the last year alone, we've seen Israel-Iran war bring the Middle East close to the very brink. Armed conflict break out between India and Pakistan. Chinese spies targeting UK democracy at home. Putin escalating still further his war in Ukraine. And in just the last year, we've also seen Europe's skies plagued by drone disruptions. We've seen Russia incursions into NATO airspace double. And we've seen 90,000 cyber attacks in the UK defence system alone. This is a new era of threat. It demands a new era of defence, an era of hard power, strong allies, and of sure diplomacy. And as the threat grows, Britain must step up. And we are. He goes on to say earlier this year, the Prime Minister said, security and defence, and I quote, is the central organising principle of government, the pillar on which everything else stands or falls. I am to agree, definitely, with that. The more you think about it, the more you realise, yeah, that's true in ways you probably haven't even thought of yet. Yeah, he went on with, I have to tell you, I'm proud to be part of a government that knows its first duty is to protect the nation and keep its citizens safe. A government that made a historic commitment to increasing defense investment because our national security does not come for free. So today I will set out the choices being made by this government before, during, and beyond the budget are essential to match these rising threats. How the fantasy savings promised by opposition parties and their record of undermining defence would leave Britain under unprotected, and also how this investment comes with a fundamentally new Labour approach. A defence dividend that is already boosting Britain industry, British jobs, British communities, and back in opposition, the then Defence Secretary Ben Wallace admitted his government had hollowed out and underfunded the British Armed Forces. It was a brutal but honest assessment. Defence budgets were cut by £2 billion, but in the first Conservative year by £12 billion. That's over 20% of the first 5 years in government. So after 14 years, they left British armed numbers at the lowest since Napoleon. It's pretty damn low. Glad to see it coming back with, as me talking now, I'm glad to see it coming back with enough vitriol that is substantial, that is needed. Enough, not vitriol, but it's like, yeah, we need to do this. I say vitriol is like, yeah, we're going to protect ourselves. Enough drive, then, that's a wrong wording. Forces, families in cold, damp, leaky homes, soldiers on the front line with kit, unsuited to dealing with the threats they face, and even the renewal of our nuclear deterrent delayed by years. This end up forcing that kind of conditions. Deliberately austerity decisions, deliberate austerity decisions. And Ben Wallace stood out in that period. He did what he believed was right for defense in difficult circumstances, and I praise him for his honesty. But his admission, hollowed out, underfunded, was an admission that every single one of those Conservative ministers should have made. Our public services, our communities, and our industrial base were hollowed out and all underfunded. Those 14 Conservative years, and today, ahead of budget, the opposition are proposing more of the same, 47 billion in fantasy savings. Yeah, Conservative are not politicians. They our cult, I would say. They have no damn idea what reality is underlining, the foundations of why are we here, why do we do what we do, and how does it really, really work. They're too far off in their own bubble of complete disconnected delusion. So he went on to say they never delivered in government, which means 47 billion of conservative cuts. They don't learn, but the public do. And the public know the damage the Conservatives did. Deep cuts to our defence budgets, deep cutbacks in our National Health Service, driven by failed economic policies with low growth cuts to investment and the mini budget. This is the Conservative political playbook. They did it before, they will do it again. Now, no matter what you think of Keir Starmer, uh, things would be a whole lot worse if Conservative was still in power. Sure, that doesn't escape the fact that some things being done now need to be addressed that have detrimental side effects. But what this defense secretary said is like, at the foundation, it should all be built around defense. If I haven't got that, well, you get information wars, disinformation, misinformation, and people get manipulated to do things that are not in line with progress. They're quite detrimental. Particularly people who are in power who are deluded enough to think that, no, they couldn't be controlled. Trump being one of them in America, right? So let alone idiot politicians within the UK, where I live. And with this Labour government, we are not going back because we were elected last year on a promise of change to halt Britain's decline, to set the foundations for renewal and build Britain's future based on a greater security and growth. That's why we've chosen the Labour priorities to fix our health system, so health service. The NHS has some serious issues. That fundamentally, one of the Achilles heels of a socialized healthcare system, it can get overloaded. But there's a number of problems where it can be fixed if things are being done differently rather than just throwing money at it. If there's problems within a system, if you throw money at it, you're just funding the problem. And I think Labour realised that that's been the problem. Just throwing money at problems is funding the problems and instead of doing things a bit different here and there. We're delivering the change that Conservative ministers did not and that no Conservative government will. Labour change powered by Labour values with a vision of future British access. Now, whatever you think of Labour's vision of the future, even worse, whatever detriment you think of, I don't think Conservative even have a vision of the future. They have greed, an addiction to power, and want to be in because it's lining their cult. It is lining their pockets, and they only think about now, today, and screw anybody else if they did anything that really caused problems down the line, because they just want to feed their own little fantasy bubble that doesn't cooperate with the reality of things that are. Sometimes things just are, and there's nothing we can do about them unless we cooperate with them and find ways to use the way the things are in a beneficial way, or ways around problems. Instead of giving up and going, oh, I can't do this anymore, how about thinking, I need to find a way around this? Kind of like what I'm doing. I'm looking for a different job because I'm not sure I can do what I'm doing anymore. because I'm tired of where I work. So instead of saying, "Oh, I can't do this," we need to look for the other avenues and doorways. Which some people have got back to me. I don't know if I'll be employed, but they've asked for more information and so on. So I've done a lot of different work over the years. There's a skill set there that could get me into technical soldering, it could get me into catering, or it could get me into more general retail, get me into IT jobs. But the main Achilles heel is payment. What rate to pay, and distance, of course. Anyway, moving forward, it's in our first year in government we brought in the largest pay rise our forces have seen for more than 20 years. The biggest increase in defense spending since the end of the Cold War, the end of the worst ever privatization, bringing back into the public ownership for 36,000 military family homes. Yes, conservative are obsessed with privatizing, and yet they double down on taxation anyway. So, what are we buying? What is the tax money buying? If there's all this privatization, where's it going? Okay. And the deepest reforms to defense in 50 years, and the first of its kind strategic defense review, so we can accelerate the transformation and innovation that's necessary to meet these threats in future. He also goes on to say the Chancellor's decision at the budget will protect those choices into the future and make it safer. More secure at home, stronger abroad. There are problems with what Labour's doing, I think, with some issues about looking after the future, but at least they're trying. Conservative will not even try to protect your future. They will take and take and take and get worse on the taking. And I'm very annoyed with the way the warning systems are, with the flooding and the lack of flooding, the lack of drainage in proper places. Netherlands is about 75% of it is under sea level, and they've never had any flooding to the level, to the severeness of what that's we have had to put up with in the UK, because they got the right technologies in place and the drainage and so on. There's thousands, billions being lost on flooding in some areas in the UK. It's horrendous. Anyway, moving forward to what the Defense Secretary said. To recap a bit, first we are developing with allies a new deal for European security, a new deal that's built on strong, secure, sovereign Ukraine, on stronger, more integrated NATO, on Europe nations innovating at a wartime peace, but put simply, we're getting on with the job that the British people need us to and elected us to do. Absolutely. I totally agree. You know, when I became Defense Secretary last year, there was no coalition of the willing for Ukraine. There is now. There was no UK EU defense partnership. There is now. There was no UK leadership of the Ukraine contact group. No Trinity House agreement with Germany. No reboot of the Lancaster House agreement and Trinity Treaty with France. There is now. And this is Britain leading from the front politically, militarily, and industrially. It's sad that conflict has to be the main driver, but here we are. We are a tribalistic species, and we're never going to get away from that unless, you know, it's in our blood. And the Cold War was convenient for a number of businesses to make money. Yeah, um, but Putin doing what he's doing is guaranteed failure for Russia, but it's also guaranteed failure for a huge amount of other countries if we don't pay attention and work something out rather than not bothering, thinking, oh, we can't be dealing with this. So, leading from the front, politically, military, and industrially, making allies our strategic strength, making our deterrence stronger, so Britain is safer and the British people are better off. I know at the moment it doesn't seem like that. COVID punched a hole, big crater in UK's finances. I know it's been a while yet since, but relatively politically in the grand scheme of things, it's not really been that long since we come out of the. You think of it on that kind of time scale, since we come out of the detriments of COVID, and also flooding has ruined a lot of businesses. Things still need to be addressed, right? But again, this is better than putting up with conservative. And the second purpose and pride of our record defense investment, we're making defense the engine for economic growth, securing a defense dividend for working people measured in good jobs, growing businesses, and new skills right across the UK. Now, if you think, oh, he's thinking about jobs for defense directly, there's always a domino effect. I worked in technical soldering about just over a decade's worth, and some of that we was for the MOD, some circuitry, this and that, but a lot of it was to general public use, to go into perhaps photocopiers, computers, printers, thermostats, shower fitting units, um, all the general things, dashboard in a Land Rover, LEDs for the dashboard. So anything new that came in was given to me because my soldering was that good. And they get me to solder it and put on testing and different things. And then they decide, yeah, we can do this and get a contract out to a firm that whatever we was doing something for and say, yeah, send your stuff our way. We can do this. We can do this job. We'll send you a sample and see what you think. But it looks like we can do it, right? So, yeah, the investment making defense the engine economic growth. Of course, well, it was a well-paid job at the time, which also aided people like me to inject that money back into the community by being able to afford things I otherwise couldn't have. So this is again, it's a domino effect. How building the defense helps everything else. That's just the way it's, like it or not. And we're still a warmongering species, if you will, or a tribalistic species. Not necessarily warmongering, but some are warmongering. Yeah, because they want everything. Putin's a warmonger, right? He wants to own so much and have so much control. But he's getting older, and who's going to replace him? Whoever replaces him, chances are they still have the same bullshit fantasies. People are products of their environment. Don't ever forget that. And certainly you can do something about that to some degree, being a product of the environment. But you need to look within and have the self awareness to see the errors of your ways there. So, fundamental shift from the failed approach of the past because in this government, every department must be a growth department. For too long, we've seen areas like mine in South Yorkshire, proud industrial heartlands, see jobs go and not come back. For too long, Tory ministers were concerned with UK defence contracts. Sorry, I'm not sure where they were going. Okay. Too ready to let the military buy the latest foreign kit at the cost of jobs and benefits to Britain. We are changing that. Again, I'll make it clear, I so did some things for the MOD. There was some secrecy around it. I didn't know what it was for, but some wires around some what appeared to be simple but unusual circuit board, and there's a few chips on there that they supplied, asked us to solder it. Don't know. I don't think even management knew what it was for, but the MOD wanted it done a particular way, and we did it. Moving on, look at South Yorkshire, where we brought back artillery manufacturing into Britain for the first time in a generation. Look at Barrow, more than 1,000 extra jobs since last election alone. Look at Sheffield, force marshes in public ownership and now expanding steel productions 75%. 70% of investment of these jobs is outside London and the southeast. Yeah, it's about time we had more jobs that are more advanced and available and pay well outside of London. Because if you're inside London, the pay is not that good because everything in London is so damn expensive. London is like its own country almost, like an England within England. London is capital of England, yeah, but it's kind of like the capital of itself as well. It's just on the outskirts of London, you can get away with, you get a decent enough job to commute in and back. You could be really well off, but not many people get that lucky. Defense Secretary went on to say, this is not just a promise for a plan for tomorrow. These are good jobs being created today. That's another problem, especially America's problem. We'll make America great again. When? When you're dead and gone because you're so damn corrupt you keep taking? And delusions that things have already been achieved to a level of perfection stifles creativity. It stifles progress, right? And you just end up rotting away from the inside out. So he went on to say, and this doesn't just happen. This is our Labour government choice, directing more defence investment to British jobs, to British firms, and to British innovation. So you can see since the election last July, we've signed over 1,000 major contracts, of which 86 are with British firms. We've generated 1 billion in foreign direct investment into defense, British defense, and we've won new export deals at 10 billion pounds for warships to Norway, 8 billion pounds for jet fighters to Turkey, and today I can announce a new program to build the factories for the future. Again, all this technology requires it to be built in factories. It also has a knock on effect for inspiring other technologies outside of defense, by the way. It's always been something that's happened every time with anything like this. creating 1,000 new British jobs to rearm Britain, to renew our industry, to raise the warfighting readiness of our armed forces, because we know Britain defence industry has a long proud history in the 1930s, where from Coventry to Tyneside, from Belfast to Cardiff, went to work building the Spitfires that won the Battle of Britain, building the destroyers that won the Battle of the Atlantic. And those workers knew they were part of something bigger. And I tell you, I see the same sense of pride and purpose in the eyes of our shipbuilders in the Clyde, on the Clyde, our engineers in Barrow, our coders in Stevenage, and our apprentices in Derby. Because they know that their long term future is secured. I think that's pronounced Derby, by the way. They know their long term future is secured by our long term investment, security, prosperity. We build it here. Certainly, coding knowledge is crucial in today's ever increasing communications between businesses within a country and communications from one country to another. That's where some of the security issues happen, from one country to another. It can be snooped on, and this is what Russia tries to do to a lot of communications. They snoop on communications between one country to another. We're not giving America a damn thing, any clues about what's going on anymore, because America cannot be trusted on anything. Can't be trusted politically, geopolitically, or even with a national security. It can't be trusted. Certainly, when you got a cult running America that is so far up its egotistical ass, it will implode like a fucking neutron star, right? Investment, securities, prosperity, we build it here, he goes on to say. In Britain, we must also innovate because technology is changing the nature of warfare. And I think people fail to understand just how much technology is changing the face of warfare. I think people have talked about it, but I don't think they understand all the implications of. There's always been what I would call a third world war, has always been since the end of the Second World War. What is that? It's an information war. Globally, there's an information war. This is not a physical war. This is uh, far more complex and nefarious, and just slides under the radar of observation for the general public for most of the time. Well, things are being done to protect your freedom by other people who work to secure communications digitally across the world. GCHQ certainly collect a massive amount of data, and the amount of work they do to trawl through a fine tooth comb every single aspect of communications digitally that go in and out of the UK is phenomenal, but it is needed, definitely. So technology is changing the nature of warfare now faster than any time in human history. So, alongside the heavy metal of planes, ships, munitions, we accelerate the power of drones. of AI. AI has its uses within military. I'm not a great fan of AI, how it's used with the general public through the internet. Yeah, please stop with that crap. Autonomy, sorry, so that we give our British Armed Forces the advantage on the battlefield, so that they why so that's why later today I'll be in Plymouth opening new housing factory where they make sea and undersea drones. Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand there's a lot of physical warfare going on under the sea level as well. They're not in the skies, not on the ocean, but they're in the ocean. It's not just submarines, is machines that are unmanned but can be remotely accessed via communications elsewhere. And drones in the sky that some of these drone things are like a small commercial craft. Um, Small private plane, sorry, not commercial craft. Um, as big as that can be, but they're not manned. There's nobody flying that other than like in a cockpit, but there's people flying it from some server connection on the ground, right? And again, those technologies need to be built, and it gives people's jobs, and the security around that defense is crucial. If we look forward to 5 years in the opposition, uh, Karma made that commitment to spend 2.5 of GDP on defense. We're delivering it 3 years earlier than anyone expected. We made a clear NATO first commitment. We're delivering it. We said we would reset relations with European allies. We're delivering it. We promised more British based defence investment. We're delivering it. And the Chancellor's decision at this budget, a part of making Britain safer, stronger, and more successful. So within this Parliament, I want Britain to become the best place to invest and grow a defence business. I think we're kind of obligated. We don't really have any choice but to go in that direction at this point because of other foolish players. Certainly, America has been a problem. Again, I think most Americans don't get how everything America does affects every other country, especially when it comes to defense. And we're not going to rely on America because you've got the best weapons anymore. We're going to just go ahead and do it ourselves. Because, again, you cannot be trusted. Underline the words cannot be trusted a billion times. Highlight it and make it glow. Burn that in your head. There's nothing about America that can be trusted anymore. Not a damn thing. So, I want Britain's armed forces to be the fastest innovating military in NATO. Well, we certainly can play a part where we'll be the best, whatever the fastest, I don't know. But we're obligated. We need to be doing our thing. I want the British government to invest matched by raising private investment, and I want communities right across Britain to see working people with new skills, new jobs, new hope for their families and their future. Only Labour has this belief in the extraordinary strengths of Great Britain. The Tories will cut defence again. Yeah, we can't do this. We cannot afford to let the Tories in. I believe the points he's making are too heavily misunderstood and people don't get it. I feel like I get it. And I feel like there are people out there who get it. But I worry that too many are so in their own bubble of not understanding what the hell's really going on, as opposed to their, their delusions, at their misinformation about what's going on. We cannot afford to let conservative screw things up. We can't really afford to have reform in. And there's some things about Labour I do not like, but you got to go with that which is more progressive. Certainly, conservative are not only not progressive, as in progress. Some conservative people recoil when they hear that word; they're allergic to it. What I mean by saying progressive, I mean making progress in society, improving, and you know, stop privatizing everything for fuck's sake. Because the public are paying for things that are not giving us in return. The way the UK tax system should work is we pay tax, and in return we get given things that are, the tax is paid for collectively. It's socialized, but you use that word in America, everyone shouts, "Oh, communism!" You're all brainwashed. Not all, but certainly too many. But you're beginning to wake up because you can see all of that brainwashing. There. It's a brilliant country. It's amazing. The land of opportunity. Nowhere is better. Look at you. I don't think, that great. I'm glad the program's broken now. The delusion, the hypnosis, mass, um, uh, the mass brainwashing, if you will, of America is like, oh, finally you realize that which boasts it's so great is because it's not. So it will help you question anybody else's boasting. It's got great achievements, great things to come. Why do they spend so much time and energy boasting if something is so great? You don't have to spend the time and energy to do that. And this is a speech of not boasting. This is a speech of here's what we have been doing, and this is the side effects, and why he's proud of it, and why he thinks it's the right way to go ahead. So he goes on to say about families and their future. Only Labour has this belief in the extraordinary strengths of Great Britain. The Tories will cut defence. The Greens want us to pull us out of NATO. The SNP spurn the proud Scottish defence industry, and Nigel Farage, he's soft on Putin, which blows my brains. I find it disgusting, appalling, and utterly shameful. Ashamed that we have a political party in the UK whose leader is soft on Putin. And he's weak on NATO. And not to be trusted on national security. Farage is a fucking idiot. He is disgusting, slimy, no good for nothing, jumping on the bandwagon for his own selfish interest. He is a fascist. He's very, I want to copy what Trump's doing because it'd be great for me. He's another slime ball, and it needs to stop. My opinion. It's the MP network news, I guess. Might do some of these out there, actually. Whether people agree or not, it's up to them. And it's up to me to perhaps further discern where I might be wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong here, of course. Very opinionated, of course. Who isn't? If you're not opinionated in today's world, there's something wrong. You're just a puppet. You're just a tool for somebody else's selfish ends. It's like stand up and have a voice, or just be a drone, a useless puppet. That's not living. You know. It was Labour that chose NATO. It was Labour that established our UK nuclear deterrent. And today it is Labour choosing uh, to make our country safer while we're bringing that defence dividend to every part of Britain. And only Labour can do this because we know at the heart of defence, military and industrial have always have been always the working class, always been the working class. So, like those who came before us, we rearm in the face of threats. We confront dictators and we boost our defense industry. And in the process, we can unite our country around this common purpose. That's what this budget will be about. Strong foundations and to secure Britain's future, a Labour government delivering for defence, delivering for Britain. Thank you. So I'll now take questions, if I may. So you start taking questions from the press, um, somebody from ITV, news outlet, different press channels. Started asking different things here and there, but again, make no mistake, Putin needs to be stopped. Assholes being puppeted by Putin because they have no spine also need to be stopped, and that is America. America's own funding for its own military is definitely probably already falling apart anyway, because billions, trillions are just leaking away because this cult, MAGA, is eating your country from the inside out. It's just a putrid pussball of existence. It is utterly disgusting. I am utterly disgusted that Farage is even a person who is kind of like pro Trump sometimes, if you look at what he's doing in the UK. It's like the cancerous growth we have in the UK. And it needs to be, you need a operation to gut that out and rip it out and seal it up. It's vile. We could choose to just not, right? Stop voting for fascists. Stop voting for idiots. Start voting for people who have your own country's progress in mind. National security is not just weaponry, it's an information war. And if you haven't got that, well, there are plenty of news outlets, really, media outlets are doing exactly what they set up to do in the first place, is to create monetization of information because they don't give a damn about the facts, the truth. This is why there's a lot of misinformation, that's half truths and biasness, a lot of biasness in media. Of course, you could say I'm very biased because of some things that I don't know, perhaps I've missed and don't understand why some other choice outside of supporting Labour could be the best thing ever. Perhaps. But you better be sure to try to back up your claims. Um, I think his speech backs up where he's coming from, definitely. Certainly, this is always going to happen with a domino effect to create jobs, create an industry, and create better agreement with other countries. Because if you have the right defense mechanisms, you can protect those other countries and they will reciprocate and protect you. America is just going to be left behind and is already left behind. Many countries are leaving it behind. I don't want to do any dealership with America. And they buy from elsewhere because the whole tariff wall, tariff, however you want to pronounce it, is another problem that Trump created. It doesn't matter if Trump passed away anytime soon because it's health issues or somebody else got in power. You can't be trusted. You allowed this asshole to be a leader of your put and other leaders totally ruin your potential in the first place while you fantasize that the potential was already reached. Fantasize that it was already there, already perfect. The greatest country on planet Earth. You confused it with, I say you, well, the authorities and the collective delusion, then confused it with uh, a fantasy of already achieving perfection rather than trying to get there. And perfection, by the way, stifles progress. Because if you fantasize that that's it, you're done, you don't need to work harder to improve your country, it's the best anyway. Well, what's that going to do? The rest of the world will just lead on and do what they can to change things for the betterment of society. But if you keep fantasizing that you're always the best and the perfect land of the liberal and free, well, do you really think you're going to progress with that delusion? You're just going to be stagnant and rot and die as a country. Trump is a product of all of America's ills. If you want to look at how disgusting your country, America, is, have a look at Trump. Uh, he represents, to the rest of the world, he represents America. And that's pretty shameful. And it would be really disgusting and shameful if Farage got into power. He would be representing all of the ills of the idiocy of the UK, but inspired and influenced by the poisonous shit that comes out of America. Because you really looked at how Farage is behaving and the rhetoric he uses. It's all mind games. It's all bullshit, and it's all very Trump-esque in many ways. Very cult-like. Can we stop voting for cults and actually vote for the politicians who are appointed to do a job rather than be a cult and poison everything from the inside out? There's some really nasty, shitty things, I think, going on in the UK via our authorities that really need to be stopped. And it needs to be realized of how much we need to get back to doing the right thing because it's a right thing to do. Not avoid it because it's hard work. There's a shitload of hard work to do for this country. It's not going to go away by going, oh, do it when I retire, or do it when, maybe if I inherit a bunch of money, then I'll retire, then you can do it. I don't want to try it. It's too much hard work. And it's like, then the next person saying that, those people who are talking that way, are the people who have the power to make the change. Of course, uh, general citizens have more power to make change than they think by sharing opinion and talking about these things. However, let's not make the same mistake America has clearly got, and that's it likes to talk a lot but does nothing. Its law system is incredibly slow, certainly over cybercrime. We've seen that, but over many other things as well. It's poisonous. America is poisonous. A rapist, child molester is a president of America and a puppet for Putin who invaded unprovoked another sovereign country because he wants that land, he wants those resources. It's disgusting. And we can do far better than this as a species. I would like to think. But we're the the best people in the world are also very, very naive because they don't expect the world to be, or individuals even, to be so corrupt because they wouldn't do it themselves. But the world is worse than you always expect in this arena with this framework when you see what's really going on. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll look forward to doing another video soon. Bye.